All right. Well, just again, my thing is how urbanization is affecting the behavior of mountain lions and bobcats. My, I'm a certified cat behavior consultant. My specialty are felids. So there's one canyon I've been monitoring. It's 88 acres, surrounded by buildings and roads, and there are mountain lions that come through there. And last month, what happened in San Francisco, which is about 15, 20 miles north of my canyon, there was a mountain lion that was caught wandering. He was in San Francisco, made his way into the city of San Francisco. Not supposed to be there, right? So before he was there, I filmed him in my canyon. Okay, so the thing is though, is what's happening is two things. First of all, because of urbanization and all this building, wildlife doesn't really have anywhere to go. So there is more, you see more animals going into the city and things like that. And there's also a lot of genetic inbreeding. It's a very bad situation. The other thing is that mountain lions, when they stay with their moms and their siblings, they're until they're 18 to about 22 months old, and then they disperse. The males, they have to go somewhere, and the males will generally be killed by the more stronger male, who is essentially their father. So they have to find their own territory. So they have been going more into the urban areas. So it's a big controversy now. Last week, and there are a lot of people who want to kill them, whatever. But last week, it was we had a big win in that mountain lions were now listed as threatened. So they're a threatened species, which is great in parts of California, Santa Cruz Mountains, where I am. So I'm doing a lot of writing. We're doing a lot of work on that right now. I'm writing an article that focused on this mountain lion, but also on what they're doing, and which we don't like, is collaring. It's very invasive. They put collars on them, and that's how they are tracking them because there's GPS on them. But it's a very invasive way to go. Now, one of the groups I'm associated with is using drones. Very cool.
So how do they use drones to track them?
It's brand new, but essentially, they're using AI along with the drones. So, and actually, right now, we're using AI as far as we can recognize them. They're training the AI to recognize the individual lions. And then using the drones, they'll be able to see them and then and identify them. Some of the problems with the drones are the noise. There's a lot of things that they're working on to make it as at least scary, at least invasive as possible. But it's very exciting. So we're my group. We're trying to do everything we can to not use to use those collars.
What did they do with this little guy when they caught him? And where in San Francisco was he, by the way?
Yeah.
And what did they do with him? Where did they take him?
Yes, that's a very good question. So what happened? A little bit about this little guy. When I saw him on in my canyon, I and I have lots of videos of him, but he was around during the day. And there's a preschool there, and I got a call from the director telling me that there was a mountain lion just sitting by the parking lot watching everyone. Habituation. This guy then made his way into San Francisco, and he was in an apartment building. And so, for instance, one of the things that happened, a woman was walking her dog. The dog was off leash. She's walking up the stairs, and there's a mountain lion looking at her. And she's like, "Oh, hello." And he's not aggressive or anything. He's just this youngster. And he hasn't hurt anybody. Everybody knows he's fine. But Fish and Wild, California Department Fish and Wildlife went in, and they got him. They anesthetized him. He has an ear tag. They also put another collar on him, which is too bad. They then took him down and relocated him down in the Santa Cruz Mountains about, I'm trying to remember, maybe about 60, 70 miles away from where they found him initially. So he's back down in the Santa Cruz Mountains. This guy is a youngster. He's a subadult. He's maybe, I think he's about 20 months old. So he's dispersing. He's leaving to find his own territory. So now they have to be careful because if they put him in a territory where there is another male, he will be killed by the other male. So that can happen. And unfortunately,
Is there anybody monitoring the region where they put him? I mean, does anybody know whether there's another male in there?
Santa Cruz Puma Project pretty much knows. Well, so does CDFW. So hopefully they found, see, because a territory is large. These lions have large territories. There's only about 40 to 50 of them in the whole Santa Cruz Mountains. And the males have maybe 120 square miles of territory. The females have a smaller territory. The males overlap the females. So it's hard.
But
It's
were
hard.
they sure that they put him in a place where he can find a girlfriend?
Yeah, well, hopefully he will when he's at that age.
I mean, does he? I mean, is he in the market? You know, is he looking to date somebody?
He's a little young now, but he definitely will at some point.
If they're not sure where the males are and they're not sure where the females are, then they got to think twice about where to put him.
That's right. That's right. It is a problem. When he was only about 6 weeks old, they put a collar on him and tagged him. And then he wandered and he was discovered in another area called Saratoga. And he didn't have his collar. He was in somebody's backyard. So they recollared him. And then he slipped that collar, ended up in my canyon going north looking for his own territory. So he traveled quite a way. There's a lot of fatalities, a lot of cars,
Actually, Bill talked about that the other time recently about the idea of making a whole corridor from, I think, from maybe Alaska right to Mexico, where animals can traverse roads and streams and things like that. That's terrific if it can be done. Yeah. Well, thank you. Is that a mountain lion behind you?
Yeah, this is a girl that I've saw quite frequently. In fact, she was in the canyon for about 6 months recently, from July till December, and then 2 weeks later, that little boy came. Yeah.
Can
So,
you tell by looking whether they're male or female?
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I have lots of videos, and there are, things that you can see on a male that you don't have on a female.
Like I'd be interested. I think one time I had reason to be curious about a cat that I don't think it was my cat, but we couldn't tell. We held him down and had a good look, and it wasn't obvious what gender it was, even when you could tell. But that's a house cat. Is that true for all house cats, or is it?
No, it's interesting because it depends. The males are more jowly with the house cats, especially if they haven't been fixed. So if they're toms and uncut, they are more jowly. When they do early spay neuter, and when that happens, it's harder to tell because of testosterone. There isn't testosterone, so it can be difficult to tell.
Mm-hmm. Hello, Charles, and hello, Richard. How are you guys?
Yeah, very good. Just watching the Olympics here.
We're working with the Russian deserters. I just got a call from Malawi. They want some work. We're working with the Nigerians, and there's a lot of trafficking, particularly of women. but also children.
Trafficking of women in Nigeria. From where to where? What?
From Nigeria, from Nigeria to various other countries, from Nigeria to Europe. Yeah, and then some of the people we're working with are trying to get them back and reintegrate them into society, and that's very difficult.
Is this something that's been going on for years and years and years, or is this something?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So this isn't a new events or anything. This is ongoing.
Well, what is new is that the European countries and the states are sending them back.
What this thing of trafficking women from Nigeria to Europe?
Right.
What's that all about? Is there a demand for prostitutes in Europe that's not been met,
Okay.
and therefore, or what? Who's doing it? Are they?
Yeah.
Is it a good business? Are they making money doing it?
They're making a lot of money doing it.
Aren't there enough European prostitutes in Europe?
You would think so. You would think so. But, and it's not only for prostitution, it's for work, it's for as domestic servants, that sort of stuff. Because then it's cheap because they don't have to pay for it.
We have this thing about Trump with ICE. So is ICE have anything to do with is that just is getting them and sending them back because they're not legal, or is this?
Well, ICE is doing it from the States, and that's another issue. There's also a lot of fighting in the north between Muslims and Christians. So there's a lot of violence in Nigeria, and these people whom we're working with are really very good. They go, traveling through the desert north and then onto these boats. And a lot of them die in the Mediterranean.
The main way they get into Europe is across the Mediterranean?
Yep. And when they get back, they frequently don't have skills. So some of the people we're working with are training them or retraining them.
Past week, I had the pleasure of listening to David Suzuki Wednesday and Thursday night here in Sudbury. He put a play on Wednesday night about his life, and Thursday was sort of a Q&A with a panel. And he pointed out how the environment is getting much worse. We've exceeded the 1.5 degrees. The oceans are reached their buffering capacity, and now the temperature will go up more exponentially. The Arctic is going to be releasing methane, which is 30 to 80 times more potent in creating greenhouse gases. So again, the temperature is going to go up exponentially. He's predicting 3 degrees by 2050 and 6 degrees by 2100. And so we don't know what life will be like at those temperatures. But what he is saying is we need to find our own little islands of sanity there in your apartment, Meta. Stock up on water, stock up on food. Also form associations with friends so that,
Hold on now. You're predicting hunger? Here, that you're joking that I need to lay in some canned goods.
No, well, this is what David Suzuki is predicting, because with the extremes of climate, you can knock out electricity, you can have floods, you can have the hurricanes, and all of those sort of things, which will disrupt supply lines. I mean, now that we're not buying from the U.S., our supply lines are from south of the equator, which are huge supply lines. And it'll be very easy to have those knocked out. with due to extremes of temperature. And the other thing is that you then form an island of sanity with friends, and who's a nurse, who's a doctor, who has skills that you might need, who has a generator, sort of these sort of things, so that you can survive. Years ago, I read a book by Margaret Wheatley, and she said basically the same thing, that we need to form our little islands of sanity. The other thing is that, as you know, I'm a pacifist and against all this military spending, but it seems that Mark Carney is trying to hire 300,000 new military to resist the Americans, sort of in a guerrilla type war. I think we're going to affect them non-violently through non-cooperation. And this is your friend Richard Sanborn there with Science for Peace and others in that group. But so that's where I'm at.
We're working with a guy in Ottawa who is actually here, John Hintz. He's talking about the way doctors interact with patients, and that doctors actually traumatize patients, and that the doctors get traumatized themselves. And there are a lot of false diagnoses around. So he and I are working on a project to teach doctors and to teach clients how to deal with this.
Well, what do you mean they traumatize patients?
Well, they give false diagnoses, and this, what is it in Canada? 18 minutes. And in Holland, it's 8 minutes.
I am just overwhelmed with attention. I belong to Baycrest, I think it is. And these doctors come out and make house calls and spend an hour here. And usually they bring a medical student with them, and they all take turns poking at me and looking at my computer and all the things that I've recorded there about my intake of various pills and all of that stuff. And when I first started it, they had me on a program where we would on Zoom, there'd be a person leading us and doing physical exercises, sitting down. This is for old people. So I'd be sitting there waving my arms in the air and things. And the physical therapists come out here, and the occupational therapists come out here, and the geriatrician comes, and they talk and they spend time with me. It's just more than I can absorb. It's more than I need.
Is this
So
private?
how come I get all of this lavish attention, and there are people who get nothing?
Yeah.
I mean, Richard, you explain it. Am I getting it wrong?
You're very fortunate living in a big city where those facilities are available. Here in Northern Ontario, those facilities are not available. And healthcare is definitely not as good in the north, which lacks those. I'm now in Sudbury, which is a tertiary hospital and does have most of those facilities, but again, they're understaffed, and so there's a longer wait time to get in and to access those services. Although
John is talking about misdiagnoses and maltreatment, and I've seen that here too, where they just don't take the time.
And there's AI, and I think everybody should get on friendly terms with Gemini. That's my favorite these days. And if you tell your troubles to Gemini, she's very sympathetic and very helpful. And I recommend it. And you don't have to tell your GP, but you can check up on what the person is saying. And I think I've gotten better diagnoses from Gemini than I have even from these wonderfully solicitous doctors. By the way, every morning, every day of the week, 7 days a week, there's a nurse that comes to watch me inject my insulin and take my pills and measure my sugar. And then there are
Wow.
2 days a week, there are women who come and clean up my kitchen and bring in the mail and take out the garbage and fill up my humidifiers and do all that kind of thing for free. Now,
You're lucky. You're
Well,
lucky, madam.
did you sign up for those, or is that
they approach me. They come at me from all directions. Sometimes 3 or 4 different companies or outfits or departments will call and they're not sure. Now, have you had your COVID? Well, I don't know. I did take a COVID now, my shot. Now, who gave it to me? I don't know. There are 3 or 4 different outfits that want to give me my vaccinations.
But is this private or public?
All public. I don't pay for anything.
Wow.
Unfortunately, Ford is allowing American third-party private healthcare to come into Ontario, and we are seeing that. I found it interesting. A couple of years ago, I had to go to Toronto for an MRI and paid $1,500 for it, and it wasn't very good service. I thought for $1,500 that I'm paying directly that I would have got better service. And a couple of weeks ago, I went for another MRI at a local hospital and had excellent service in the public system. So private doesn't necessarily mean better service. It certainly means more money.
right?
And I think, Marilyn, this is one of the advantages of Canada is our health care system. It is there's still problems. I think the difference between Canada and the States is that if you've got the money, you can get a Cadillac service, whereas here in Canada, you have to wait for the bus. But the bus is free, and you eventually get on the bus, and the healthcare is equally good.
Well, from what I'm hearing from John, the way he was treated, me as a doctor, seeing this, it was clearly malpractice.
I mean, there's bad apples everywhere, Charles.
I'm sure.
But I think overall we have very good health care.
But I haven't lived in the States for 30 years, so
Well, this is not the time to come.
I know.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
Again, there seems to be a disconnect between what the people want and what the government delivers.
Well, what we're worried about is that the midterm elections, and he's trying to do what he can to sabotage the midterm elections. So it's
Well, you got
not-
your gerrymandering happening. You've got disenfranchise of the poor and various ethnic groups. You've got ICE, who will be waiting at the door for people to vote and carrying them off.
Yes,
And these are your Proud Boys and everybody else.
yes.
So, I don't think you're going to have fair elections.
Well, and I know, and he's also, I think I'm hearing that he's trying to stop the mail order. I mean, I always vote by mail, and he's trying to somehow or other stop that from happening. No, it's very bad. It's very bad. Very
Well, that's it. If you can't vote by mail, then you can be intimidated at the polling station.
yes.
I'm, downright anti-American now. It really feels very strange to actually hope that bad things happen to my country.
Thanks a lot. There's what about that 60% that are totally not approving? It's not our fault. Can't hate us.
I know, dear. I know.
California, especially.
Yeah, that I feel that protests are simply not covered enough because that, for example, if you look for the No Kings movement, on the day that they have that, and you have something like 1 million people on the streets of the U.S., you look at find it in the New York Times, and you won't find it. You won't find it anywhere. And so I wanted to get some journalists or academics to talk about why they keep from disseminating this information. I was asking you about the state of the world in Poland, and you were in the middle of a conversation, but I've forgotten where we were.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's turned around pretty much. I guess a couple of weeks ago, the tide has turned against the Russians because Elon Musk finally cut the Russians off in a very consequential way from his satellite internet. So the Russians were using it illegally. They're not permitted to use it, and they somehow it's a very very weird story. They got them through third countries like the Emirates or other countries. And what's even more weird that the fundraising for those satellites, for those Starlink devices, came largely from Orthodox churches worldwide, in Europe, in the US,
Wow.
probably. So they just collected the money from the church fundraising for those for the drones, for the Starlink devices. But then a couple of weeks ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, maybe Elon Musk took some measures to cut the Russians off from those drones. You had to type some password to prove that you're a legal user of this Starlink device, which effectively cut the Russians off from the satellite internet, and that meant a complete disaster in terms of command and control. And the Ukrainians took the initiative. They've been on the they're starting to be on the offensive since then, since that point, because they needed something to happen like that. And the Russians have nothing to use instead of that satellite internet, because it's just.
Well, how much do they depend on it? They can't use cell phones and things like that.
Well, cell phones are dangerous for them in terms of their susceptibility for overhearing. So they can be they're very the encryption is very weak, I guess. That's the problem. And well, the liaison, the telecoms in the Russian army have historically been very weak. Even if we go as far back as the First World War, even then it was a disaster. Even before the Soviet Union, it was always a big disaster in terms of the cohesion of the troops, and nothing has changed. As we can see, some old bad habits die hard. Not only the communication, other things too, like contempt of human life, of human dignity. If we see how the Russian soldiers are being treated on the front line, there's lots of videos circulating online how cruelly they're being treated for their unwillingness to go attack the enemy lines. It's just inhumane. So nothing has changed in that respect, and it's really. Had there been any videos like that on the Ukrainian side, they would be online immediately, and the Russian propaganda would have made a big deal of that. So it seems that it's only a Russian phenomenon nowadays, and and they say that there is no brotherhood, like brothers in arms, or there's no such thing now because like the Russians are so mad at each other for what they're doing to each other on the front line that should the war end, there will be no cohesive brotherhood. They will be just attacking each other for all the grievances that they have incurred during the war. So it will be an like internal struggle more than it will be a certain group of people like like it was maybe in the 90s after the Afghan war in Afghanistan. We had lots of gangs coming from the former soldiers that learned how to kill while in Afghanistan in the 80s. I think it's going to be more messy right now.
Mhm.
So it's a
They're
whole lot
paid
of
very
cruelty.
well, isn't it? I've read that lots of times the families think, "Oh, goody goody, my son can go fight," because their salaries are quite high, right?
They are on paper, but the reality is looks a little bit different because even if they are not, even if they are not deceived, even if they get the salary, all the payments, all the bonuses, they have to first buy some of their clothes for that money. Then there's inflation on the front line, so everything starts like a bottle of vodka is costs an insane amount of money. And then there's corruption. If you don't want to go to the meat grinder, you just have to pay the superior officer, and it can cost several $1,000s. Like it's a lot compared to their salaries. Even if you want to get a medical certificate, which will allow you to go on a vacation to see your family, it's even more pricey. So it's not, even if you are not deceived, even if you're given that money, even then there is a risk that you won't really be able to spend it for your own benefit.
Mhm. Mhm. Well,
So
I
it's
saw for a
crazy.
moment that, oh yeah, Brian is with us, but he's got um, his camera off. So Brian,
Yeah,
turn
6 in
on
the
your
morning
camera.
here,
We want to
but
see you. Welcome.
thank you. Um, Alexei, you were talking about maybe a situation in Russia.
Yeah.
I do want
Well,
to,
sure.
I want to highlight something recent development, and that is Starlink has turned off all the Russian communications, and it's provided strong asymmetry with the Ukraine, which they're hopefully taking maximum advantage of. So
That's
it
just what
creates
he
a
was telling
very
us.
different situation in the war.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Alexei was just telling us that, and I didn't know it before. So good. Oh.
Yeah, that's
There are a
important.
couple of things that I've been hearing. First of all, in Ukraine, it seems that they were going to try and convict this Yuri Shelizhenko,
Mhm.
who is the kind of head of an association of conscientious objectors. And for some reason, they put off the trial of him, which is a good thing. We don't know for how long, but he's also, by the way, head of the Quakers in Ukraine.
Mhm.
It is also with World Beyond War.
Yeah, yeah. Yuri is quite a character.
Well, now, if they were going to convict him, that means they were doing it from a Russian court in his absence.
No,
No,
Ukraine. In Ukraine.
in Ukraine.
He's in Ukraine.
Oh, Ukraine was going to charge him?
Yes, for being a
Ukraine.
conscientious objector.
Oh, because Ukraine won't acknowledge conscientious objection?
Ukraine is
No,
against conscientious objection, basically.
Oh,
because he was a conscientious objector, they were trying to say that he was supporting the Russians.
Yeah,
But he's against all military, and
yeah,
so my understanding is those charges were dropped, and he was arrested and charged several years ago, but
yeah,
I just seen him a couple months ago with World Beyond War.
yeah. He's I I see him. I wouldn't say regularly, but occasionally because he comes to those deserter groups that we have. The other thing we're hearing from those same people is the way that the Russians are being, the families of the Russians are being harassed. So, which is no surprise, but
yeah, so they're persecuting the families of what? Russian deserters or
yeah,
Russian deserters?
Russian deserters and conscientious objectors.
Well, that's been a clear red line for quite a long time. If we
Yeah,
talk about opposition figures, if we talk about all kinds of people that the Kremlin can have some grudges against. So touching relatives, touching families, was out of the question for a long time. But now it no longer is, I guess. So it's a new. We have just. Like we say, we have just hit the new bottom.
Well,
It's a
tell me
new,
in terms of your own situation. I mean, you have a mother. Do you have other
yeah.
family members in Russia that they could try to abuse?
Well, I don't think it's realistic in my case. I'm not a high-profile opposition figure. I'm not a. I'm not a. My risk is not high compared to other figures. It might have been if I had been on the front line, if I had like stolen some airplane or helicopter, something which one guy did, and he went to Spain. He was protected by the Ukrainian security services. He had the protection, witness protection, but he was careless enough, and while living in Spain, he wanted his Russian girlfriend to come to his place, and that's how the KGB detected him and killed him. Of course, not the KGB, but the KGB hired the thugs who did the job, and so he was shot in Spain.
In today's newspaper, the New York Times, there's a long story about, they name the guy, a Russian guy who is in charge of organizing criminal sabotage. So they blow up IKEA markets, and
Yeah.
apparently he organized an attack on was it in Poland? I've forgotten where. That there were about 1,000 businesses, small businesses were blown up with.
It wasn't Warsaw.
Was it Warsaw?
Yeah,
And
but
they
there's
know
been several.
they know who it
Sorry.
is, and they put a picture of him in the New York Times. But I don't think there's any chance that he'll be brought to justice. I suppose he's living in Russia and clearly protected, isn't he?
Well, he laughs best who laughs last, right? So let's see. Right now, probably he's immune, unfortunately. But let's see what history has to say a little bit later. Maybe if the tide changes really dramatically, then he will. The next Russian government will be happy to really just give him up in exchange for for sanctions being removed or something like that. Not only Poland, there's been cases in Lithuania, in Germany. There's a whole map of different I would say, terrorist attacks in Europe, including an airplane. That's a war. Actually, that's a hybrid war.
Brian, I see you've turned off your camera and your microphone. Can you bring us up to date about your activities?
Yeah, my father-in-law died. We're returning to California, and we'll be going through the funeral and the celebration of life, and then in the coming week. So I'm packing now.
Oh dear. Oh, was this a surprise or were you expecting it?
Long time coming, but so we have to get on a plane tonight, and it'll be some weeks in California.
Well, now, will you have things to do while you're in the States? Because it's a long trip, you don't fly every day of the week.
Well, we hope to raise funds for marine permaculture. We hope to raise funds for projects near and far, and we hope to also help to bring communities forward and raise resources for stellar communities, and that means abundant energy, abundant food, and abundant labor.
Will you
Thank
still
you.
be available? Because we miss you, and every now and then I have a need to get in touch
Yeah.
with you about things. I hope all of you will join one of the study groups. I'm trying to have individual conversations with the people who are going to be the steering committee members for each of the 5 study groups that we're organizing. And I did have one meeting, but I think I need more individually to make sure everybody's really on board with this. But if you didn't get it, I presume all of you did get the Substack invitation to the study groups? Did you? Did you receive through Substack? Everybody got it. The first one, we're going to let everybody in the world in. I don't know that means that we'll have more than 5 people. But at any rate, it's not just restricted to members. But after this, it'll be members and Substack subscribers.
No, we're working with regenerative communities from Noosa to Narara in Australia, and also we hope to organize a report. We did a pilgrimage to village homes in Davis, which was an example of a regenerative suburban subdivision that generated a food forest. So suburban densities, but they had trees. They still have gardens, trees, orchards, vineyards, and get a good fraction of their vegetables from the community itself. And I think that's a really key finding.
Did you say from Davis? Did you say Davis?
Yeah.
You mean Davis, California?
Village homes in Davis, California.
Oh.
Really?
It's a great example. Yeah, it's available on Wikipedia.
Oh, wow.
The information. And I think it's an outstanding example, 50 years running, of people getting half their food from the local suburban community. They open up their backyards for common access, and the front yards are private. So they've really flipped the neighborhood. So I encourage people to see that, and we're hoping to build similar things here in Australia, working with builders on affordable housing construction, and really working to build an abundant future for communities across the world. And we'll start right here in Australia.
Good for you. Have a great month, and I'll see you in a month, okay?
Thank you.
in a month.
Can't wait. Thank you so much.
Bye.